All
For
right.
sure.
All right. I am here. Let's see if I can get it in the gallery view. Oh, we're side by side on my screen. That's how we're going to record it. I'm here with Benjamin Pelton, my friend, my colleague from um, the very first ever class of Wim Hof Method instructors back in 2016. I met this guy in Los Angeles in May of 2016, and he was a pretty muscular guy back then, but I think he might have put on a few pounds of muscle since then as well. We got into Wim Hof Method, and I gotta say, ever since, what's funny, I think we also got into jujitsu at the same time, but whereas your belt has gone quickly, changed colors down to, I believe, black, if I'm correct.
No,
Okay, so you're
no.
not there yet. Blue, it's blue or purple?
It's a blue. It's a
Okay,
blue belt,
okay.
but definitely trying to get to the black for sure.
Compared to my bleach, like starchy
Fresh.
white, it's pretty much still folded and it's got like the little tag on it still almost, that's how little I have progressed. So I'm interested in finding out more about your progression there. And then in addition to that, Ben, you are, I believe, still a doctoral student studying philosophy in what university is that?
Dude, so I haven't been able to update you. I
Okay, so
have
yes,
not.
this is why we got to talk. Tell me,
Exactly.
what's happening?
Sadly, Florida State University did not accept me into their program.
A bunch of losers
And
is what they are.
it was a very big disappointment because I couldn't imagine why they wouldn't want me to be in their program to continue to be studying, driving the other students, and
Yeah.
spreading this discussion on all sorts of topics.
So you learned jiu-jitsu to get back at those bastards. I like it.
Well, there's that. And then right after that, listen, it was in December
Okay.
that they let me know.
Mm-hmm.
COVID happened in March. So it was like interesting coincidence of events where like
Just
I didn't get
desserts.
accepted,
Yeah.
and I took it as a universal thing of being like, this isn't the time for this in your life right now. So
Well, it turned out it was the perfect time not to go to school.
that's what I'm saying, literally. Like, and I had someone advise me not to go back to school before I was applying, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna go ahead because this is what I think would be best for me.
Right.
Then I got rejected. Then the COVID thing happened, and I went back to the person that told me like you shouldn't go back to school right now, and I'm like, dude, what did you know?
Right.
So it's kind of redirected my life goals, and at the same time, I also moved back to Miami, Florida. So now I'm in Miami. Originally, I was applying to school while I was in Vero Beach, which is where I started picking up jiu-jitsu. And now I'm in Miami, where's my hometown. So I have the hometown advantage back on my side.
I like it.
And I'm actually now teaching my own association as a head instructor for the jiu-jitsu down here in Miami.
You're teaching?
Yes, which is really interesting because I'm a blue belt, which isn't really what most blue belts do.
Right.
Normally, they expect you to be a black belt before you're teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But my Master Hernando Tavares, is a legend in the sport of jiu-jitsu. I asked him for his permission, for his blessings of, hey, can I use your affiliation to be teaching? And he said, yeah, no problem. While I was at Vero Beach, he already had me assisting as an instructor during the beginner's class. So I was already developing my skills to teach jiu-jitsu, but he also knows that I'm a TAC Fit instructor, a Wim Hof instructor, a few other instructors. So like he knows I have the skill of teaching, and that just going to another, program or material to teach is not difficult for me. So that I think allowed him to feel, comfortable going ahead and having me teach as a blue belt.
Dude, that's all. Now, real quick, real technical question. Can you hear my humidifier in the background?
No.
Okay, good. Because that just went on. Here in Indiana, okay, so you don't have this problem
definitely don't have that
in like the Northern Caribbean or wherever, but we have to treat our air. Like in the summertime, it's as wet as the air is probably right now where you are. In the wintertime, all of the humidity leaves and breath workers like myself are left just parched. Like my nose is just like, it just turns into a desert. So I'm really strict about it. Like, okay, we got to treat this air. Actually,
Right.
I met a guy in jiu-jitsu recently who he moved for some reason from Hawaii to Indiana. And I was just like, okay, are you running from the law? Like,
I know.
you owe money? Seriously, man,
You're trying to hide out? Like, where you could...
where is this going? Like, what's your plan? And I guess it was for his wife's family lives here. I'm like, oh, dude, I don't know, man.
From Hawaii, right?
I'm just saying, why not just bring the family to Hawaii? But it was crazy because the first year he just couldn't understand what was wrong with his sinuses. I was like, no. Let me tell you, it's the air.
Right.
You freeze all of the water out of the air. But anyway, getting back.
So do you have a humidifier in every room?
So I've got a big like humidifier that serves for the whole house, and it's sort of close. It's not really that loud, but it's over here kind of in the living room-ish area. It's kind of an open space type of a house. And it's today, like it's down, it's below freezing earlier today. And then, we're in the frosty times. So the grass, when you get out there, it's crunchy.
Nice.
And, it's perfect for training. Wim Hof
right.
method. It's perfect for cold training, and so it's really cool. And, I can't complain because I really enjoy the fact that it's not an ice bath every day. So once it turns cold out, I get to go out and play in the, I'm hoping for snow. We had some flurries today. Now, I don't know if I told you this. I don't think I did because I'm a Midwesterner and we don't tell things. We're very, you know me, you know how quiet and reserved I am. But so it's my birthday this week. And I'm hoping, so Friday's my birthday, and I'm hoping for snow. And on Thursday in the forecast, it does say something about snow. So,
let's go.
Yeah,
some snow for Jesse's birthday.
Exactly.
Make it dump some snow.
Oh, dude. Now, I've got family in Florida, and that's something you and we've tried to hook up a few times to do a Wim Hof method workshop down there. It hasn't worked out so far. COVID completely blew everything out. I had to cancel like a dozen workshops, and it just everything went to a screeching halt. Eventually we're going to do that down there though.
Yeah, we should. We definitely need to. You were saying in Orlando, right?
That's where my wife's family lives. And so
either way, we could definitely find a spot in Florida, but you're right. COVID for me too, I had to cancel workshops. I was supposed to travel out to Vancouver to actually do 2 workshops out there.
Oh.
And it was like right in the beginning where people weren't sure if it was like acceptable to be traveling and the country still hadn't banned it yet.
Yeah.
And then it just came down to being like, nah, we're just going to go ahead and shut this down. So
yeah, there was that awkward period, right? Where it was like, I heard there's a pandemic. But because there was a while, I think whenever it was just at the very beginning, people were just like, I guess. I remember I was coming back. I went to Poland for the Wim Hof to experience for a couple of weeks and led a couple of expeditions out there, and came back and I saw a bunch of people wearing masks in the airport, and I was like, well, some people they're really careful and. It's weird, but okay, no big deal. And then I got back and I was so jet lagged. I heard about COVID as I was coming through customs and stuff. And I was so jet lagged the next day. I was like, oh no, I got it already. It was jet lag like crazy. But yeah, it turned out.
Dude,
I just needed a nap.
Yeah, when I was in New York, I traveled to New York in early January, and I came back from New York really sick, and it was pretty gnarly for me. Like as a Wim Hof practitioner, I don't really get sick, so when I got hit with this bug, I was like really sick, and this was before COVID was even a thing yet, right?
Yeah.
Like I think December is when they started having issues in China or wherever it was an issue,
right?
And then January happened, and then February was like alarming, and then March was like the beginning of lockdown. So in
Yes.
January, I got tagged really hard and was almost going to go to the doctor because I was like, it was lingering for almost a week. And I was like, okay, like, I don't know about this one. Like, what's going on here? And then I broke it. But when it finally hit, I looked into the symptoms of COVID and was like, like, what is this thing that people are talking about? They're saying, like, may feel like you're drowning, like hard time breathing. I was like, dude, that was me in January. So I feel like I had it.
Yeah.
But
I've heard a
but
lot
I haven't
of
had
people
those
say that.
symptoms since. I haven't had those symptoms since. And here in Miami, I've had people that I've been around that have tested positive, and they haven't really had those kind of symptoms. So I don't know. Like, we could go down the rabbit hole
Oh
of this
God,
whole
yeah. But
COVID nonsense, but yeah.
right. I think it's got everybody. If you catch a cold, I think everybody is like extra like, dude, you keep that at your house and
Right.
don't you bring
It's so. Someone was saying, like, there's a meme where, like, someone sneezes in a grocery store and everyone ducks like
Oh
someone's
yeah.
got a gun.
Right,
It's
right.
like someone's shooting a gun in there. You're
I
like,
know.
oh no,
And
gotta run.
it's a crazy time. And this is one of those things where I'm a little bit older than you. I'm just gonna say a little bit, but it's
Your
so
birthday's coming up.
yeah, and it's a pretty big one. It's a big one. It's the big 40.
I was gonna say, I was
Yeah,
like, it's a
because
big
you knew
one. It
I was
must
in
be
my
40
30s
coming up.
already. Yeah, it's the big
Yeah,
one. It's hitting.
yeah.
Well, I just remember, when I was 21, 9/11 happened, and I was like, oh, this is just crazy times, right? And then, I just didn't think I would live through another weird, crazy time in history. But history's full of
So
weird,
is this
crazy times.
crazier too? Is this
Oh,
crazier than
crazier.
that one?
Way crazier. Yeah, I think the thing is with 9/11, it was like everybody was still glued to their televisions. I think that was the first time in my life that everybody was glued to their televisions all the time. Cable news was kind of still, yeah, it was there, but I think cable news really bloomed, sadly, because of it. And before you know it, everybody was just glued to their televisions all the time. And social media wasn't really a thing or anything like that. So
Nah, not even close.
yeah, I mean, I don't even think we had MySpace at the time. So
Right.
you got all your
AOL.
news, yeah, logging on, you've got mail. I mean, it was the early days of the internet. So maybe but you didn't have all these voices that you have now. And
Right.
now it's really confusing, I think, because you're just trying to, I think most people are just trying to make the right decisions for themselves and their families. And they're just trying to, try to be rational and not give in to fear, but not be reckless. And there's so many more voices now than there ever were before. And I think it's harder whenever you have all that input. But
Right.
one of the things though that I do think about what happened to me with jiu-jitsu, it completely eliminated the possibility, because I was hoping to go back to jiu-jitsu. What happened was I broke my finger. I don't know if you can see this, but this is a rubber wedding band because I can't get my finger, I can't get it over the knuckle. So what happened, we were doing takedowns, and I was a knee landed right here. And now this particular knee belongs to a guy who I train with Breathwork now. He's an amazing kickboxer here in Indiana. He's about to go to the state championships, which I think you said you're climbing the ranks.
Yeah,
as well.
I'm fighting on Friday, your birthday.
Oh, dude! Oh, that is so awesome. Is there any way I can watch?
There is an organization that's called flowgrappling.com,
Okay.
and I think they will be streaming the games.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll have to check into that. It's the World Championship, so this is literally the biggest. This is the biggest tournament of the year, and it's called the Masters World Championship, IBJJF, so International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation.
Oh my God.
And
dude.
yeah, it's really cool. I'm ranked. They got me ranked 4 out of 22 in my bracket, so I'm top 5 for the world rankings right now. And yeah, fingers crossed. I've been training for months for this moment to test myself. I got to buy my first fight, and then the first round, and then from there, we'll see what happens. You know, it's with fighting, it's always like who prepared the most, who didn't make mistakes, and who capitalized on other people's mistakes. So it's like those options are always a variable that the fight can go any way, or just some weird thing happens, you slip or like you get bumped in the knee and you break your finger. So
yeah. Well, and that's what took me out originally. And you know how any kind of injury it's a catastrophe whenever you're really trying to make progress, because you're like, all you can think about is being in there rolling or practice doing drills or whatever. And then, that's the worst thing you can do, because you need to stay still and you need to try to recover and, you know, or at least do minimal stuff. Well, you and I practice this Wim Hof method thing. So my inflammation was minimal. It was, and it really didn't hurt that bad. It's just that it looked bad. And I was like, okay, I think it would hurt more if it was really broken. I did all the stupidest, you know, all the things was like, it's probably fine. Just put some tape on it. I'll just buddy tape the thing over here, you know? And so I've done it to mini toes. I've broken mini toes, but not mini.
Right.
I broke 2 toes, 2 pinky toes, both of my
like,
pinky toes.
Many toes.
They're all like, I'm walking in there like a weird kind of a crow bearded man. And so but like, so I've already done it with toes, and I was like, I think I did it with another finger too. And I was like, I'll just do it with this thing. It's probably no big deal. I kept going in there, coming out every time, and it started to kind of throb, and I'd go take an ice bath or something. And eventually 2 weeks had gone by, and I'm like, this isn't going away. And my wife she's like, I've just given up on ever you doing anything not stupid with your training. So I eventually got an x-ray, and they're like, yeah, you broke that. I was like, oh, come on. And they're like, yeah, you broke it. And it started to grow back, and there's scar tissue and synovial fluid. And I'm like, yeah. So like, when can I go back to the gym? And so the thing is, though, it's better than it was before. And now I can play guitar again and all those other things. And so I went to, I stopped doing jiu-jitsu for about 6 months, because that happened. And then I got busy with workshops, and then I came back from Poland. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do some rolls and stuff like that. And then COVID hit. And then I broke my other finger. Like, I've broken these 2 fingers. It was the stupidest thing. So it's been so long that whenever I go in again, it's going to be like my first lesson again. It'll feel like. But speaking of first lesson, why don't you where did this start? I know when I first met you, you were not talking about doing jiu-jitsu. And I think I started kind of seeing some of your posts about, hey, I went to the gym today to do some rolls and things like that. Take us through from what got you into it?
Great question. While I was in Miami at the UFC gym as an instructor there, I was a strength and conditioning coach, and I was teaching a body movement class there. And that was the FlowFit program. That was like, I was kind of making it like their yoga flow class. They had a program called Yoga Flow, which was for yoga instructors, but FlowFit is a program that has body movements and yoga movements. So I kind of was able to like convince them that I should teach that slot, but for this different curriculum. But it's similar. But
I'm seeing a pattern. I'm convincing. I can teach it. I promise. Yeah.
Let me show you. There's an up dog and a down dog in it. So
what more do you need to know?
Yoga.
Yeah, there's like a tree pose, and then touch your toes.
So they let me have the slot, and while I was teaching the body movement class, I had a lot of jiu-jitsu guys from the gym come to that hour slot and use it for mobility training. And so they were gaining more mobility in their hips, in their shoulders, and they were like, dude, this class is awesome. You're a really great mover as the instructor. Have you tried jiu-jitsu? And I was like, I'm not into martial arts. It's not my thing. Like, I'm not really interested in that. And I didn't like the instructor there either. Like, we didn't connect.
That's big.
Right. So I didn't do jiu-jitsu. I moved to Vero Beach for a business opportunity. And that's the beverage company does the medicinal mushrooms called Myco Tea. So I was working with them doing their marketing and sales, and I had to move from Miami to Vero Beach. Vero Beach is about 2.5 hours north on the East Coast on the Atlantic Ocean. Beautiful
Mhm.
little like surfy, beachy kind of spot.
Cool.
A lot of retirees there, and I didn't know anyone there. So I'm like, all right, let me search Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Vero Beach, and my master pops up, and his resume is crazy.
Yeah.
5-time world champion, fifth degree black belt, 40 years of training,
Okay.
like all these credentials that you're like, all right,
Nice.
if I want to learn from someone that's in
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu, like this is the guy to learn from. So I contact him. I go to the first lesson. Don't know anything, he's like, all right,
Right.
throw a punch, and I'm gonna show you how to block it. And I was like, I don't even know how to throw a punch, man. Like, like
Yeah.
help me out,
Isn't that weird? Is that, not to interrupt, but think about that, because that was one big obstacle, I think, for me when I started. It was like I was comfortable with my own body, right? And moving around with my own body, but actually being physically engaged with another person was
Right.
really alien. It was a real foreign thing to me.
Right. And you can think about it like that, and just like doing martial movements, right? Like
Yeah.
movements that are martial related that like I never was introduced to that. Like I played lacrosse, I played
Right.
football, I did other contact sports, but I never did like striking, kicking,
Yeah.
wrestling. So those things were really alien to me, like you said. But I left that class feeling like amazed of all the different things I could learn, and like I
Yeah.
just loved how I felt. So I told the guy, I'm like, man, I'm so excited for this new hobby. He looks at me and goes, this isn't a hobby. This is a lifestyle. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, I
You
love
know
this
it's legit.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning. And then ever since then, like as an athlete, as a Wim Hof instructor, I'm always, committed to the mission of whatever I'm practicing.
Yeah.
And so I just joined in Monday through Friday, doing an hour every beginner's class, and growing from there. And because of my work schedule, because of not knowing anyone in the city, like that became my new lifestyle. Literally, it was my lifestyle. Like
That's
getting
a
up,
great
going
way
to
to
work.
start to get to know people too, because
Right.
the people in the gym, some of the greatest guys I know, I met, and it's crazy because you get to know these guys, and of course, it sounds to someone who's never done any kind of martial arts before, it sounds kind of weird, but you get to know them on this level where it's like, if it's a leg guy or it's you kind of get to know their habits in a way that it's hard to get to know people otherwise, like outside of that.
Well, I got another way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
Which is we're learning people on a nonverbal way. So it's a
Oh
nonverbal
yeah.
communication with that person that
I
like
like
when you're
that.
training with them, there's no communications or words being transferred, but just the energy and physicality that you're communicating through training.
Yeah.
Like you build a very strong bond with that person. Either you're going to connect positively or you're going to connect negatively,
Yeah.
but you're definitely connecting with that person. So to me, I feel like that's like a really cool thing that a lot of people miss out on. Like you know,
Yes. Yeah, I never would have like I think I feel like I'm missing out right now because I'm not doing it. And like I remember the vast majority of my life, I felt like, well, I'm a lover, not a fighter, man. You know how it is. It's like I don't need any of that stuff. And well, I just never really considered it. And it wasn't until, of course, I'm an English professor, and so with all these school shootings were happening, and the, I was just like, well, you see enough of those happening, and then what started happening was there were some unruly kids that were at our school, and the chair of my department, or occasionally would say, hey, are you going to be in the hallway of this hallway during this hour, because there's this one person who they're having some troubles with. And like, I work out, okay, and
right? But
but that's it. Like I can flex at him, or
yeah, it's like you got a nice physique and a
yeah,
big beard, and they're like,
right,
all right,
right.
Jesse knows what he's doing. Professor Jesse will take him out.
Yeah, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like scare him?
Hit
And,
him with some big words.
I know exactly. But like once they figure out that I don't have any idea what I'm doing with my body, then it's going to be over. And not to mention, even if you do know how to fight, you don't know if the other person knows that. Most people don't. That's really, I think, one of the big bonuses of even just being a beginner in any kind of martial arts. Most people, they watch, maybe Jean-Claude Van Damme movies or whatever, and they're like, okay,
Or they see UFC or something, they watch a
yeah,
UFC fight.
and they know you're supposed to hit him in the head, and they know, it's or you've seen some moves before, but if, like, I remember schoolyard fights when I was a kid, and I remember seeing fights, and most of it was just, it was just brawling with no real
Technical
objective.
movements. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
it
no
was just like
techno. Right. It's just a full blown like brawl, and there's no. It's a lot of flailing, and
flailing. Yeah, yeah,
and nothing really technical about the technique. But like you're saying, like for me, it blows my mind that people want to fight people in the streets. Like, because I'm a lover and not a fighter.
right.
But like now that I know training, I'm like, why would anyone want to try someone? Because like if you don't know training
Yeah.
and you accidentally bump into someone that does,
Yeah.
like your day is so sorry. Like you're not gonna be happy
It's
that you did that.
Well, and what proved it to me, so on my first lesson there, the coach, he took me through some basic movements, and then the second day I was there, um, it was just me, and there was this girl who might be maybe 110 pounds wet, just she's this little thing. And he was like, "Hey, Jesse, why don't you go ahead and we're going to try a roll, and you're going to go against Heather, and she will,
She'll play with you."
yeah." And I was like, and here I was, I'm 6'1", 210, 220. And
Training.
I'm like, yeah, okay, here we go.
You're like, okay.
It was, and then, all this stuff. I was like, don't want to hurt you now.
You're like, I don't want to hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm coming at it. It's before I knew what happened. I tapped like 3 times in the amount of time that it should have taken one roll to happen. It was just so, and it proved to me, and that was because I think a lot of people would just say, okay, this isn't for me. It depends. It's one of those decision times. It's like you either get hooked or your ego doesn't let you go any further. And I was like, if that little girl, and that's what she was compared to me. This woman was she's still very petite, very well accomplished. And she kept on progressing. Who knows what she's doing now? Heather, if you're watching right now, I'm sure you're still killing it. But that proved to me right there. I was like, whoa, if she can do that to me, what could I do if I learned some of these things, Right. And so that's what got me hooked. And I usually only went maybe 2 or 3 times a week, with my schedule and everything. And, being a dad and having all these things, there's a lot of things going on in my schedule. So, but it was so empowering, just saying, okay, all right, I have a pretty good handle on, maybe these guys at the gym can all throw me around, but I feel like I can at least hold my own if something were to happen. And we did some Kali, a little bit of Kali, not with the actual knives or anything like that, but with just more of a self-defense type of a thing. But mostly I just got hooked on jiu-jitsu. And of course, you got hooked, and then when did you decide, okay, I'm going to start leveling up? Did you start with gi, or has it always been gi?
I've always been gi. I'm not really a big no-gi guy.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, I have been playing more no-gi just because it seems like you need to be good at both of them, mm-hmm. and that they complement each other. They're just 2 different scenarios. One, you're slippery and sliding around. The other one, you have grips and you can really control people. So my school is mostly a gi school. My master trains a lot of gi. And so our organization particularly has a lot of people that compete, because our master still competes. Like last Friday, he had a fight to win fight. He's 52, and he won his fight. Yeah, I know. See, he's a 6th-degree black belt now, so he just got promoted, and he's just like a solid piece of stone. And yeah, the guy's a monster. but he competes, and so he leads from the front, which is a
That's
great
awesome.
example of like how to really excel in the sport, who to look up to, how to be motivated, how to plan for your fights. So as an athlete already, I had the mindset like, let me learn the curriculum, let me learn the moves, the map
Yeah.
before I decide to really like put myself at a high risk experience.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, he, I guess, saw as a coaching move to not allow me to roll for 50 sessions. So this was like, he
Ooh.
never really did this. It was just kind of a new curriculum he created. And I think it had partly to do with me being there. But he just made me go to beginner's class and only learn drilling techniques for 50 classes before I was
Wow.
allowed to be in a like a full pace roll. So by the time I was ready to roll, I had already figured
Oh
out the
yeah.
entire map, all the submissions, all the positions, and then was like, all right, you ready to come to intermediate class where we do our rolling. So I had maybe almost a year of training, you know, maybe 6 months of that because I was just crushing sessions to
That's
get
awesome.
those sessions done. And learned the map, started training, and I committed to not fighting for a year. I was like, I want to be
Yes.
proficient before I compete. And then the second year of my white belt, I started competing like once a month. I just started registering for different competitions in the area. And then what's interesting is when you go to a competition, my first one, I'm
Yeah.
talking to a purple belt, I'm a white belt, and he's like, man, I'm so glad that you're here fighting. Like when you go to fight, you'll get like a month to 2 months of training and 1 day of one day of fighting. And so like if you really want to excel in your degrees, you should always be fighting because that's
Yeah.
going to force you to become better. And so that second year of my white belt doing, you know, I think I competed 11 times in 12 months.
Oh my God.
Um
That is
I
so
I
awesome, man.
yes.
Yes.
And it was
11
awesome, man.
times?
Yeah, it could have been maybe more. I lost a few, but I did start placing and winning medals, which was really an exciting experience because that's, you know, it makes you, it's just a medal, right? It's just a piece of metal, but
But
it's
still,
the effort and the time and, you know, the dedication that is really the awards showing that you're putting in the effort to get that. Um, but then you go back to school, right? And you
yeah.
start training with the people that aren't competing and you start to immediately sense the difference of the level of intensity that they think is normal versus
Right.
now that you've been in a fight with
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 guys just trying to kill each other, that
Right.
when you go back to practice you're like, this is so slow, this pace is so much like more relaxed, and you're
Yeah.
like, wow, I am so much better now because this normal practice speed is so
Yeah.
slow, it's so slow. And then you're like, dang, that's the new bug, is because you're like, wait, I'm only going to get that level if I fight because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to get in a competition. But that's why certain teams create competition teams, because then they get guys that are always competing together and they know what that intensity is. So then when they're
Ah, yeah.
practicing, they keep that higher intensity of like a competition team practice versus like guys that are doctors, lawyers, you know,
Right.
moms and pops that just want to
Yeah.
come and be a part of a community and get exercise. They don't want to be getting smashed and murdered like a competition team. So this was an interesting experience for me. Like I'm 31 now. I
Okay.
started when I was like 28, 29.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as a younger motivated athlete, you know, it was
Yeah.
hard at the beginning to be able to recognize who the people are that like aren't really interested in getting smashed. And then who are the ones that are like, hey, I'm a competitive athlete too. Like, yeah, let's push each other to get better. So it
Yeah.
was like another maturing experience in this whole jujitsu growing, that was like, hey, look, you know, not everyone is here to be a competitor. And like I
Yeah.
had to have that talk with my master because like there was a little like friction coming on with people because, you know, there's other guys that they're not competitors, but they still want to bring the heat.
Sure.
So then you
Yeah.
so then you bring the heat to them, but then they maybe don't want the heat as much. And then they're then you're like having to talk about like, why is there so much heat between each other? And then my master's like, look, you got to be respectful. These guys are not competitors. You need to
Yeah.
recognize that when you roll with those individuals, you know, find the guys that are ready to go with the heat and then push each other. But, you know, find that boundary and be respectful. Because, of course, like we have a saying, don't break your toys. Because if you break your toys, you have no toys to play with, right?
I like that. Yeah.
So, it's always about getting each other better. And so, yeah, my second year, I competed like a monster. That got me better. Then I realized, like, the only way I'm going to continue to get better like that is to keep competing.
Yeah.
And I went out to Las Vegas towards the end of my white belt to compete in the Novice World Championship, which is kind of like what I'm doing on Friday, but as a white belt.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up losing my fight when finishing third, which was quite an experience.
Yeah,
But
still awesome.
the learning experience was you have to warm up before your fight. And
Okay. Okay.
if my dad ever watches this, I love you, Dad, but you're the reason I lost because I told you not to come. I was like, I don't need any distractions. Please, no distractions. He surprises me and flies out
It's
there. And
being the
like
good dad, right? Trying to be
being
the
a
good
good
dad. I'm going to
dad,
be there for my son.
I want to see my son fight at the World Championship. But I came out of the bathroom, changed to get ready to start warming up,
Yeah.
and I ran into him. I accidentally
Oh,
saw him, and I was like, dude, you can't not say hello to your father. Like,
that's
there's
right.
your father. Like, you got
Yeah.
to go say hi to him. So I go to talk to him. Next thing you know, they're on the mic like, Robert Benjamin Pelton, please
Oh,
report to mat
geez.
1. You're on the mat.
Oh.
So I'm like, oh my God, I haven't even warmed up. Whoa. So I run over there and I started freaking warming up. And the guy that I was fighting, he already fought one fight.
So he was
So
warm. He was
he
primed.
was
Yeah.
smoking hot. His engine
Yeah.
was just like ring, 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 ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, like his reaction was so quick that he just ended up getting the fight and closing it out on me. So that was the lesson, like
That's
my
always a
master
lesson.
says,
Yeah.
he says, win or learn. There's no
There you
losing.
go.
It's
I
always
like that.
learning.
Yeah.
And that was the learning experience, which was when you fight, you need to be 100% ready to engage with anyone. Because, like, for example, Friday, I have a bye again. So the guys that I will be fighting will have completed one fight before I compete that person.
Oh, okay.
So I will purposely get myself to the level of like sweating and being like I'm almost in a fight too.
Yeah.
So that my reactions, my nervous system is ready for a fight level. And, we have the conditioning now that like I did rolls on Friday. I think I rolled for an hour and a half. I just did like 10 rolls
Oh,
back. I didn't
nice.
stop.
You
I
are
didn't stop.
conditioned.
Oh yeah, I'm on another level now. It's pretty ridiculous.
That's
But
beautiful, man. Yeah.
yeah, so
Just so
getting
any
to
if
that
you
level.
just for those of you who are watching or listening who are not familiar with what a roll is, right? It's basically in jiu-jitsu it'd be kind of like you might call it a spar when we spar, or it's essentially when you are doing jiu-jitsu on each other, right? It's an actual it's like a practice match, and you can go at maximum intensity pretty much because it's jiu-jitsu, and going for I think the average fight, right? The average street fight, what is it? It's like 2 minutes, 3 minutes long. And most people are just gassed. And that's why they end, right? It's one person's like, oh, I threw a few punches and it's not over yet. And this guy, that kind of a deal. That's why they say if you can last for the first couple minutes, you're probably going to win if you know anything what you're doing, because most people just gas out. Their adrenaline just burns through them, and then they're left just kind of drunkenly swinging. And if you've ever seen like even bad MMA, I don't know how bad it gets down there, but it's pretty bad up here sometimes. And there's guys that just kind of I don't know even if they have to try out. It's just like, you want to kick some ass? Yeah, okay. You want to kick some? Okay, cool. We'll go. And then they just kind of hit each other for a while, and it's just really boring. It's just really boring to watch. It's like, one of you guys just trip and fall or something, But just for those who are listening, though, to roll at a maximum intensity, the intensity that you bring in jiu-jitsu, it's greater than, like, people talk about how swimming is such a great cardiovascular workout, and it is. It's a fantastic cardiovascular workout. But you've got this other person. It's as if the water is trying to actively drown you, as opposed to just being a
you drown yourself.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And so you've got these two human beings who are going at it 100%, and to do that to make it through like just 5 minutes, a few 3 to 5 minute rolls is pretty significant for the average person. You're going to be pretty tired by the time you get done. So an hour and a half, yeah, you're on a new level.
It was, just to let people know, I have a few white belts that are my students, and I mean, they just started.
Yeah.
So I have them roll now for 3 minutes, because 3 minutes
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
literally the level that they can maintain before they literally lay on the mat,
Just
guys,
gassed.
like gassed
Yeah.
to the max. So my other student, Mitch, he started at 3 minutes, and then we bumped him to 3.5, 4 minutes, 4.5, and now he's running. He did the other day 3 5-minute rounds with me, no problem. 1 minute recovery in between the rounds, and he's now at that level of conditioning.
Yeah.
So then the other student, Tony, he wanted to roll, so we got him in there. I maxed him out at 3. He couldn't even finish. He got to 2:45, and he was done.
Yeah.
You
So
know.
I've been there though, especially when I first started, where I'm like, just like, I'm not any, they don't have a hold on me, or, I'm not even close to tapping, but I'm just like, you know what, guys, we've been going
I'm
now for a
gassed.
little while, and I'm just ready for a break, and,
Right.
and it takes a while before you kind of get that endurance. It's kind of it's almost a discipline specific. Would you say? It's like, I've known people who can run, long distances and things like that. It's just a different kind of conditioning.
Yeah, definitely. It's like max efforts, right? I
Yeah.
compare it to like hitting a piece of like a deadlift that isn't coming off the ground. You're literally
Right.
like full exertion lifting it, and it's not budging, and then you have to like move to another technique, which is then another maximal effort.
Yeah.
So that's where I like the idea of like technique over strength,
Yeah.
because if you're using a lot of strength, you will gas yourself out. And then, as you were saying before with Heather, she
Right.
was using technique on you and was able to move you around, and she was just like half your size. So it's like
Exactly.
technique over strength always wins. And then if it's a tie, then whoever's a little bit stronger, they'll win. But yeah, the conditioning is definitely specific to jiu-jitsu, but I like to use jiu-jitsu as like a barometer for my overall conditioning, because I feel like
Yeah.
it's such a athletic sport that, like, the other day I went and ran 5.5 miles,
There you
and
go.
it's just because, and I try to use that as like, okay, if I'm training hard jiu-jitsu, I should be able to do other activities and
Absolutely.
not have a problem.
Yeah. Well,
So
you talk,
that's what I've been doing.
there's so much research in HIIT, right? The high intensity interval training. And I mean, how much more high intensity can you get than rolling? And so, yeah, I can see that. Now, whenever you get to competition, when you get to this point where you're really trying to prime your nervous system, take us through maybe unless there's secrets that hey, I want you to win, my
No,
friend. So, but I'm
no, no,
just
no.
saying,
I mean,
what are
yeah.
some things that maybe that you do to prime yourself to get yourself ready?
So I'm always doing my breath work,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm making sure I get enough sleep. A big thing for me too is hydration.
Yeah.
So I drink a gallon in 24 hours that I put magnesium and electrolytes in,
Mm-hmm.
and drink that throughout the day. Um, I did a competition where I took an ice bath the same morning of the competition to see
Yeah.
if like getting that adrenaline released
Mm.
earlier in the day would be helpful for managing my nerves.
Right.
But I think it actually blew my fuse, where like I didn't
Okay.
have the adrenaline release like dripping that I would have preferred during the fight. So this time I'm doing it differently. I will not be doing an ice bath the same day. I'll do it like after,
Like a
because I want to
recovery,
have
maybe.
because I want to have that adrenaline dump when I'm fighting, to like have that extra edge when that's going on. But this week, so I trained hard today already from 11 to 1, pretty hard, and then tomorrow I'll train pretty hard, and then Wednesday and Thursday will be off days where I'm just working through techniques, letting my body recover. Nutrition wise, I still need to lose like 4 pounds.
Okay.
So I'm just eating a little bit smaller portions, same food items that I normally eat regularly. I'm just shrinking the portion size so that I can gradually drop down,
Okay.
but still feel like I'm getting calories in for my training.
Right.
And that's about it. Like I don't think it's like really that technical when you really look at like, what are you covering? Sleep,
Yeah.
hydration, and breath work,
Right.
as far as like nervous system preparation.
Now, when it comes to breath work, are you specifically doing Wim Hof method breath work or any other techniques?
So recently, over the last couple of months, or I mean, since COVID really started, and James Nestor wrote his book, it's Breath, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Breathe. Um,
think it's
he convinced me to go all aboard with the taping of the mouth during the night. And so ever since that book, I have been doing tape on my mouth. And
mhm,
that's been one of the most transformative things because I had already read Oxygen Advantage when we
right.
were going through
Back
the
in the
Wim Hof
day.
stuff
Yeah.
back in the day. So I was aware of the importance of nasal breathing,
Right.
but I just never committed to taping my mouth because I was like, well, if I do nasal breathing during the day, then we can assume that like I'm developing that habit and that it's going to instill for the rest of the time.
Right.
But when I started actually doing the taping in the night and like just being like, all right, let's just see what happens when I do it, it was
Yeah.
already taking me to another level. Like my sleep increased, my skin health went up.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not doing it, you
Yeah.
should definitely try it for like at least a month or two because like at this point, whenever I tape my mouth and put my head on the pillow, I just pass out. Like
Yeah.
normally my brain's racing and I'm thinking about things I got to do the next day or just important ideas before I sleep. No, with the tape, it's
Yeah.
literally like you're going to sleep right now. And then I just wake up in the morning. I'm like, wow, that was amazing. Like, I can't believe I just did it again. And it's been every single night. Tape on the mouth, out.
Now,
And
did you have any of the telltale signs of being a mouth breather when you were sleeping, like a dry mouth when you woke up, or snoring, or?
well, the biggest thing is just because I eat late at night.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
so just because of my scheduling that
Mm-hmm.
I can't help not eating that late, which
Yeah.
they don't recommend eating at least 2 to 3 hours before you go to sleep to let your digestive tract kind of slow down and shut down
Yeah.
before you rest. So I used to drool at night and
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't
Yeah.
realize that
So
the
so that was a
drooling,
sign. Yeah.
yeah, was it? My mouth is open, right? Like if
Right.
I'm
You
drooling
have to.
out my mouth, then my mouth's open. So I realized that when I tape my mouth, I can
Yeah.
still eat late and not drool out my
Ah,
mouth, keeping it
let the
shut.
good times roll, right? Yeah.
I know. I was like, this is such a simple solution. Just
Yeah.
tape my mouth.
And
Um,
and you're not, you're swallowing the drool, you're just
well, that's the thing too, is like by design, we're suckers. So
yeah.
our entire digestion is a sucking mechanism that helps push it through all the way through. So by closing that mouth, you actually create a better seal
Mm-hmm.
for that sucking to happen. And dude, my digestion is even better. My metabolism is even better just from taping my mouth at night.
Yeah.
So it's been a really good change. But on top of that, when I read James Nestor's book, I reread Oxygen Advantage at the same time, and I think I reread what other Breath by
Dan Brule.
what's his name,
Just
Dan
breathe.
Brule.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I like went ahead and like overlaid all these books together simultaneously, so that I can really like revamp and think about the whole breath thing. So I started doing more Buteyko training breathing now where
Yes.
I've been doing a lot of walking with
Mm-hmm.
a kettlebell in my hand for
Mm-hmm.
spine stability, farmers walks,
Yeah.
but like long farmers walks. I'm talking
Yeah.
like 3 miles with a
Farmers
weight in my
hikes.
hand. Yeah, farmers
Yeah.
hikes. So, but I've been doing the breath holds with my walks. So I know
Nice.
James was
Yes.
just doing runs with the breath holds, but I've been just doing walks because I wanted to start slow and steady and create a pattern that I could actually stick with.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm doing currently for my breathwork practice is a 30-minute walk. It's a mile and a half. I have a kettlebell. It's like a 20-pound in one hand. I
Yeah.
take a mace in the other hand, which is
Yeah.
like a 7-pound. So I look just like a warrior going to war. And I'm walking with this. And every 10 seconds, I'll hold my breath. And then
Yeah.
every 10 seconds, I'll do a recovery breath. So I'm
Okay.
breathing through my nose this whole time, but I'm just trying to recover. And then I'll hold my breath again for 10 seconds on the exhale. And then I'll do a recovery breath for 10 seconds. So like
Yeah.
30 seconds out of the minute is holding breath. And then the other 30 seconds is recovery. And then I do that for 30 minutes. And then
Oh, that's
every,
that's awesome. How often do you do that?
it's, I try to do it every day if I
Oh
can.
my
But like,
God.
yeah, I've been doing it like, 3, 4 times a week. And
That's
like, dude,
dedication. That's awesome.
I feel awesome. Like
Yeah.
you get done with that, your
Well,
entire system's opened up. Like you feel crazy good.
and this is the thing. This is the thing with breath work. I think a lot of us, we were turned on to Wim Hof method because you feel just so amazing when you do it. And I still do Wim Hof method. But I think so often we ignore the carbon dioxide training, right? And and to our detriment, because yeah, training carbon dioxide, right? Training our tolerance is not as fun, right? It's not as mind blowing and, you know, all this stuff. But the rest of the day is so much better, you know? And for me, did I send you, I know I've got your address. I couldn't remember if I sent you a copy of my book.
I haven't gotten it.
Okay.
So I'm
If you don't get
hoping
it,
that
if
it
you
comes
don't get it in
soon.
the near future, let me know, because I want you to read my book.
Yeah, I
Because,
can't wait to dive
yeah,
into it. I can't
yeah.
wait.
But yeah, one of the things that whenever I train like athletes and people, just even people who are just, I have a lot of anxiety in my life, Jesse, and I need to be able to relax, and I don't understand why I can't do that. We test their carbon dioxide tolerance. It's abysmally bad. And it's like, okay, I've got great news. You know, and this is the thing. It's good news, because it's like,
Right.
this is something that we can affect. We can
So
really,
simple.
it's not that hard. And you can start, like, you know, you're an athlete, you're a strength and conditioning coach. What you're doing right now is, you know, it's miles ahead of where I start most people. And like, I'll have MMA fighters and things like that. They've got resting heart rates of like 50, you know, just great shape, young, and, you know, they can roll all day. And then I'll test their carbon dioxide tolerance and it's low. I'm like, dude, you're about to become superhuman, and
Right.
you don't even know it. And that's the thing where it's like, most of us overbreathe. And I know I'm a talker, and I'm constantly mouth breathing because, right? And so whenever when I first got in, of course, whenever we were training with Wim Hof in the mountains, I don't remember if we were all reading The Oxygen Advantage before or after. I don't remember when, but
Probably right after.
sometime it was around that time, because I was like, well, wait a minute. I was, you know, all we were doing is this deep breathing. Now this is, I was a little confused. And I remember talking to, the breath guy. I forget what his name is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I'm sorry, the breath guy.
There's so many of them now.
I know there's a lot of breath people, but we were talking, and we're like, well, wait a minute. These seem to be contradictory, but they're the perfect marriage.
Right.
And so, but I think oftentimes, you know, a lot of people get in to breath work because they want the mind-blowing experience, which I'm not going to argue with that. But yeah, it's these CO2 training, man. And then the rest of the day, stress is just not as what it was before. And you can run up that flight of stairs and not be out of breath. Because I always was wondering why. Because I was doing HIIT every day. You know, I was in really good shape, and I was like, man, why is it that I run up the stairs and I feel out of breath? I shouldn't feel that. Well, no, you shouldn't. And it all comes down to that CO2. Of course, you've got the vasodilation and all these other things that come from it. And so, yeah, that's fantastic. You can do
yeah. So I think like an important point we should bring up is like
Yeah.
the CO2 tolerance is a relationship to stress.
Yes.
So like the better you have a tolerance to CO2, the better you most likely have a relationship to stress and dealing with stress.
Mm-hmm.
And so like by measuring your CO2 tolerance, you can immediately kind of figure out why you're having anxiety or why you feel overwhelmed at work, you know, because you're not practicing breathing, holding your breath. So on Tuesday nights here in Miami, I do a guided breathwork session with, we have like 16 people that have been coming pretty regularly.
Nice.
I do a mixture of, I start with kind of a CO2 tolerance, Bateco kind of breathing,
right,
to get them developing that tolerance before we go into our Wim Hof rounds to let them go longer in their breath holds during that period. So it's like I combine it together, and which, you know, is mixed reviews about combining breathwork sessions. But for my breathwork class, I like to develop a CO2 tolerance and then let them feel the more, you know, lightheaded and trippiness stuff. Because people are like, man, I was seeing colors in my session and all this. But then you have other people like, I had trouble holding my breath really long.
Right.
And those are the people I'm like, look, just by change, and they say I'm anxious. And I'm like, well, great news. Like you said, great news is all you need to do is practice holding your breath more. build a better tolerance to CO2, and most likely, because science has proven it, that you're going to develop a higher tolerance for stress.
Yeah.
And that's going to transform your life.
And they've done studies even, and the CO2 is this way for everything that's alive. So like even fruit flies and just every kind of animal, CO2 causes us, it's this panic thing. And of course it's the thing we know that when we feel high levels of CO2, oh my God, I have to breathe. I'm gasping for air. And yeah, and the thing is, it can be super simple. Like the nice thing about CO2 training also is that you can do it without worrying about passing out,
Right.
and so you can just slow down your breathing. And even on your drive to work every day, you got a 10-minute, 20-minute commute. Well, guess what? Just do some slow breathing. If nothing else, I mean, that's where I start people,
Right. Right.
nasal,
Yeah.
nasal breathing, just slow it down and kind of
Right.
maintain a little breath hunger. Just maintain it. You don't even have to do, eventually you'll get to the
Right. You
holds.
don't have to do the holds. You don't even have to do it. You just have to lower your rate of exhaling, right? To getting rid
Exactly.
of the CO2. If you can slow that down, then you're going to saturate yourself more with CO2. And that saturation is what we're looking for, right? Because then over time, you create the tolerance, you get the vasodilation, you get all the benefits. So it's just important that like you just slow it down
Yeah.
if you're not doing that already.
Yeah. So it's really cool to hear you talk about that, because I think that, I mean,
Well, that was like my own little
yeah,
experiment, right? Because I'm
yeah,
like, I read the book and I'm like, all
yeah,
right, I'm motivated to do the tape, and I'm now motivated to do these walks because of this whole COVID thing. I had like way more free time to just like kind of put into myself, And I'm
sure.
like, because they shut down gyms here in Miami, if you can imagine. I
Oh my,
moved to Miami. I'm like starting to get my
yeah,
clientele. I'm trying to develop a business here, and
yeah.
then the government's literally like, you can't work in your health and wellness or business when the immune
Yeah.
system's so important right now.
All
You
right, go
can't
sit
do
on the
it.
couch and be
I'm like,
healthy.
what is
Yeah.
going on with life right now? So, anyways, I just started doing my walks and started doing the walks with the breath holds, and I felt like immediate change. And because I'm like timing it all, I could tell like my own tolerance was increasing. Like when I would hold my breath for 8 seconds while I'm walking, that was a challenge. Then it became 9, then it became 10. And I'm like, okay, I'm actually seeing physical improvements.
Yeah.
And
Measurable
then
changes. Yes.
measurable changes,
Yeah.
and then on top of doing it all the same always and over, then I noticed that my overall time of completion of the walk got faster while I'm maintaining the same breath hold time. So I'm like,
That's
okay, I'm getting
progress.
performance enhancement and still hitting the numbers that I'm getting on the CO2 tolerance holds. So I'm like, this is working. I'm
Yes.
adapting positively to the training. So ever since then, I've just been like, this works. And then I have people that I do jujitsu with, and they literally, people tell me, Jesse, they're like,
Yeah.
are you breathing? Like, are you breathing? I don't hear you breathing. And I'm like, yes, I'm
You're
breathing.
gonna
But they're
get some
like,
kind of
what do you
nickname,
have,
like,
like 9 lungs? No,
yeah.
one guy's like, you have 9 lungs, it sounds like. I'm like, dude, that's epic. But I'm a Wim Hof instructor. And they're like, oh, no wonder you can breathe like that because you're a breath guy.
Yeah.
So that's the importance of breath and training itself, is that people are amazed that I'm able to keep going and remain so relaxed with my breath
Mhm.
that I blow people's minds. Like, it's
Yeah.
really cool that they can pick up on that.
Well, you're creating the hormone EPO, which produces more red blood cells whenever you practice Wim Hof method. And then so you're expanding your capacity as far as oxygen carrying. So, and then at the same time you're building a tolerance to CO2 on the other side. So I mean, it really is a huge expansion. And not to mention, being able to focus under stress is the name of the game, right? When you're playing human chess, what jujitsu is. And so being able to, because I once I got some training in, and the nice thing is, being a breath worker, I was able to downregulate a lot of my stress response. At least I had a few things going for me whenever I started jujitsu. But after I got some skill, there'd be some new guys come in, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, they're going really hard and heavy because they're in that panic mode, right? And so to be able to slow it down in your head, to be able to focus and still have that intensity, um, you know, dude, yeah, this
It gives
Friday,
you the edge. It definitely gives you the edge. So that's been kind of my routine recently. And the farmers walks or farmer hikes
Yeah.
with the kettlebell and then the mace. I've been taking the mace and then holding it up like a flagpole to create more shoulder stability, because the
Okay.
diaphragm connects to the shoulders through the serratus anterior. So you have the muscle that cuts through the rib cage here to the front side of the shoulder blade. So I'm doing these breathing exercises while also thinking about my shoulder placement under tension
Ooh.
while moving and stabilizing the core. So it's just like another way of thinking of how our shoulder and our diaphragms connected while under stress of breath holds and walking, which is so important to our physiology, right? Because like over evolution, we've evolved to be walkers,
Yeah.
runners, and throwers,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like what kind of training are you doing to help facilitate those movement patterns and make you better? You know, like I don't do conventional training anymore. Like I'm really like I haven't touched a barbell in like almost 5 years because
Yeah.
it's very static. You have to
Yeah.
really brace yourself and get locked into the floor or the bench press, whatever you're doing, because that's how you have to lift the equipment.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like back in the day, you know, there wasn't really barbells. You know, training is a
True
result
that.
of like having to supplement for our deficiencies in athletic movements we used to do in our normal life. You know,
Yeah.
like if we were out picking up wood or farming or hunting or, you know, fighting each other, you know, those different things would fulfill our athletic desires and needs. But because we became so modern and less of those movements and just having more free time, we came up with the idea of exercise
Yeah.
as a way to like supplement those deficiencies. And you know, the problem is there's groups that are saying like all exercises are based on cadaver science or therapy as an industry, right? So therapy came around World War II when people were coming back injured, and so they came up with these programs of movements to facilitate rehabilitation of injuries. But then all training kind of like built off of that, right? Because they're like, oh, this is
Mm.
what heals the body, so this must be a good way to exercise. And then
Uh-huh.
people kind of evolved that into strength training and doing more of those kind of movements. But
Yeah.
that's based on rehab. It's not necessarily based on what we're anthropology or like what we're supposed to be doing like as a species. And so like if you study us as a species, we walk, we throw, and we run.
Yeah.
And so like now most of my training is facilitating those patterns. How can I make myself a better thrower? How can I make myself a better runner? And then by just focusing on that, my jiu-jitsu is going up. Like I feel way stronger in my jiu-jitsu. And then I look at other people and how they train and I'm like, maybe
Yeah.
they're not getting the bigger picture. Like they're solidifying themselves when they should be thinking about rotating themselves. You know, they're not doing things that go in line with the physiology.
I love this. This is now we're starting to nerd out on stuff, and
Yeah, no,
I'm
because
getting.
there's a group
Yeah.
of different schools of training. Like you have functional patterns,
You're
which
right.
is with Natty Aguilar. He's out in Hawaii. He's a very interesting character, but he supports Wim Hof. He's been out to meet Wim Hof out at his training center. He's into club bells and throwing, and he follows. He's all about physiology and evolution and abiding by those laws is what
Yeah.
he calls them. Then you have David Weck, the Weck method from California. He created the Bosu trainer, and he has these clubs that you can use for throwing. He's all about that. And then you have Goda. Goda is the greatest of all time athletes. Goda, and like the goats.
Yeah.
And these to me and my research are like the top programs right now for fitness that are abiding by those rules of walking, running, and throwing. Okay, now their approaches to accomplishing those three goals are a little bit different. They each have their own products that they're trying to sell you to
Right.
facilitate those movements, but they're all like saying like this is the way we should be training. And it's interesting. I'm starting to lean more towards the camp of Goda, and here's
Okay.
why. They teach their coaches how to be slow motion video and analyzers. So this is really cool. This is
That
very
is cool.
fascinating. They took 4 different populations. They took babies, high performing athletes,
Mm-hmm.
high performing elderly population. So people that are awake in their 80s and 90s, but still doing track and field events. you know, like a
Okay.
200-meter
Yeah.
sprint or anything like it, but they're super old, right?
Wow.
So
Okay.
clearly something they're doing
Mm-hmm.
is making their mechanics
Yeah.
still functional, right? So in such a late age in their life.
Yeah.
And then the fourth group that they're doing is indigenous tribe people. So
Okay.
video of
Beautiful.
them that haven't been
Yeah.
influenced by society, right? Modern society. And what they've shown through all these babies, high performing like NFL players or basketball players, the elderly, and these indigenous people is they all exude the same patterns when they're walking. They all have the same exact mechanics while they walk. And so Goda has created a language symbology or categorization
Yeah.
to actually like say like, oh, look at this leg. That's called bowing, where they're creating a bow in the tissue so that they can load the energy from that right side hip and then come around the corner and transfer it to the other side of the hip. And so then they created an entire language to describe these movement patterns that you can see in all these different populations, and then teach that to you as a coach to see it. Because that's the thing, is like having the eyes to see the problem with the person
Yes.
moving.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people right now, they you just don't know what you're looking at, right? Like
Right.
that's the key of assessments, right? Like as a breathwork gun, you look at their
Sure.
assessment of their breathing pattern and you're like, okay, you're not hitting these baselines based on the assessment, so you need to do these things to correct it. Same thing
Right.
with movement, right? Once you have the eyes, the lens to see what's the problem or what they're not hitting as far as like what we accept as the best pattern, then you can start to create a pattern to fix that deficiency. So it's really cool because they just show you on their Instagram account video after video of them analyzing these movers and being like, all right, look, this guy's doing a great job. And they call them Godas. Like, this is the greatest of all time athlete. Now, on the
I'm
flip
looking these
side,
guys up right now.
they call people Wodas, which is the
What
worst
is?
of all time athletes.
Ah.
So, and then there's a Boda, which is a between of greatest all time athlete. And most of us are Bodas, but there are
Yeah.
Wodas. And then you want to be a Goda. And so I think it's really cool what they do with their analysis. There is a lot of, sadly, because again, we have a capitalistic economy. So everyone's kind of like, you know, championing their brand and
Sure.
pushing for theirs to be the best. So there's a lot of like friction between the different schools, those three schools,
Yeah.
functional patterns, WEC method, and Goda. But it seems like Goda is really like knocking it out right now. They're definitely winning me over. If I could afford to pay for their coaching certification, I would. It's a
Yeah.
little pricey, but I think that's where we're heading as far as like being able to watch someone walk on a treadmill,
Yeah.
go through
Yeah.
the video with them and be like, look, this is what's wrong with your foot placement. You know, this is when you're stepping off the back heel and your heel
Yes.
is going inward versus outward, which is like an innate safety mechanism for our connective tissue. So their slogan is like saving the world's connective tissue. And and it's crazy because then they'll show you videos of people that are lifting conventionally
Yeah.
that are programming the nervous system to do a pattern that when they're in the field running and trying to do like a stiff arm and block, the nervous system goes to that pattern because it's been trained lifting weights in that so much
Yeah.
that it then creates the failure in like an ACL tear or an Achilles tear because they're programming a pattern that's not used for that movement. So
Yeah.
it's like the software is choosing the wrong way to do it.
Because the standard, the overhead squat assessment, and the lot of those basic, those really standardized ones. You think about, there's not much. I mean, there's a lot you can tell about a person from one of those, but to really look at the way a person walks. I mean, sometimes it's obvious, right? It's like, okay, you've got some issues here, but yeah, I'm gonna look into
Because
that.
like because here's the thing, right? You're saying
Yeah,
there's assessments that are static, right? So you
yeah.
can look at them, do the movements,
You
and
can
you're like, all right, your
stare
knees are
at it. Yeah,
collapsing in, and you're like, all right, this happens
easy.
to that. But it's not relating to how they walk because the walking pattern is dynamic. So they're
Yeah,
actually moving. So they might move differently than the squat assessment.
yeah,
So those are helpful, like very basic tool. But once you learn this lens of like, I mean, I figured most of this out. I bought their book, which is
hmm
cheap. It's like $20 on Amazon.
okay.
But if you go through their Instagram videos, like you'll get the education there. Like I feel like I already got it now because I've watched enough videos where it's just learning what to see, which is when people are stepping, their heel needs to flip outwards as they're walking. Like if you're looking from someone from behind
Yeah.
and they're walking, their heels should go away. And they call it heel away all day. You know, they have like really catchy slang words to like really like engrave this in your head. Like, okay,
Yeah.
heel away all day. So, yeah, it's what they call it is like everything is cadaver science. And what they do is singularity and fractal science, which is like if you
Okay.
look at fractals and everything's moving in curvatures.
Yeah.
So they think that like the way we move is more on like a fluid based program versus like static. And
Well,
yeah, I
there's,
mean,
yeah, absolutely. And that's the one thing that I learned early on with weight training, you know, just going to hammer it at the gym. I still do weight training a lot. I mean, that's my primary thing. But if you if you just do weight training and you're not working mobility and flexibility, yeah, you're asking for imbalances and you're asking for all kinds of problems.
well, what's fascinating about weightlifting, right, is like when you lift something, in order to lift it, you have to stiffen yourself, right? Like if you leave
Yeah,
yourself like relaxed and fluid or flaccid, then you're not able to create rigidity for leverage to lift,
right.
right?
Yeah,
So the whole way you lift things is by creating lever points and then rigidity so that you can move the object.
right.
But that action is what over time creates stiffness, and the cells actually become more calcified for rigidity. So that's why like powerlifters are very stiff people. They're super
Yeah,
strong and they
yeah.
can lift massive weights,
But it's
but
all
they
prime
have to
movers.
by physiology become stiff in order to be a better lifter.
Yeah.
So like if you want
And
to
that's
be a
not great for
mobile guy,
longevity. You know, that's not
well,
great
there's
for,
that. And like as a jujitsu guy, like
yeah,
who wants to be stiff, you know?
right.
Like I look at jujitsu to me as transformed into being like a really high indicator of overall athleticism.
Yeah.
You know, like how well can you move when someone's trying to kill you or fight you? Can you get through that and not get injured? You know,
Yeah.
like because then I train with people that they go to gyms at other places
Mm-hmm.
and then they come to my place and they're injured. And I'm like, what happened? Oh, I was lifting the barbell off the bench, and I tweaked my neck. I put my neck in a way and I tweaked my neck. So I can't train with you because I tweaked my neck lifting a barbell. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. And
And it wasn't
I'm
trying to
like,
kill
dude,
you, right?
do you understand that I'm like fighting people and I still don't have injuries where I tweaked my neck? Like,
Right.
how are you accomplishing that? Like, what are you doing in your life that makes you in a position that just by putting your neck in a weird spot, you injure yourself? Because that's not resilience. You know,
Right.
that is
Yeah.
not the definition of resilience. Resilience is like you go to jujitsu class Monday through Friday, fighting people, and at the end of the week, you're still good to go for the next week. That's resilience, and that's
Yeah.
what we should be exuding, right?
Yeah.
And then still recovering and adapting. If you're not accomplishing the goals, something with your programming isn't as good as it can be,
So
right?
when
Because
you,
maybe I'm. Go
no,
ahead.
I'm loving what you're putting down, Ben. I'm wishing that I lived in Miami, Florida right now so that I could hang out and follow you around with whatever it is you lift and throw around. So I love the farmer's walk. Just in general is a fantastic exercise, I think. But I've seen a lot of videos where you have used, the kettlebells and then the mallets,
Club bell.
the club. Okay, club bell.
Yeah, it's like the one that looks like a baseball bat.
The clubs, yeah, that's the clubs, yeah. So are those your primary
Yeah,
sources?
I'm using so TacFit was
Yeah.
created by Scott Sonnen, and Scott Sonnen was the first guy to patent the design of the club bell in the United States Patent Office.
Okay.
So he saw they're called Persian clubs. They're
Yeah.
from over there, and he was in Russia training, saw people with it, and was like, "Yo, this is a badass piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and bring this to the U.S." So he created TacFit and circular strength training, which is like the first program in the US to use club bells as a tool for exercise. And the idea behind this is like it's abiding by the rules of we're throwers and we're runners.
Yeah.
And when you grip the bell, the club bell, it's the same as like pulling a rope. Like your handle on it is different than a dumbbell. It's like a
Yeah.
more of a gripping. So when you're swinging it, you're having to squeeze it like you're pulling on something. So very, very powerful dynamic tool. Um, he actually was the instructor of the guys that are at On It. So On It Academy. Oh,
Uh-oh.
sorry about that. We're back. We're back.
All
Sorry about that.
right.
Sorry. The On It Academy had their instructors go through Scott Sonen's TACFIT program. And they used to be TACFIT practitioners before they broke off and then strictly did On It. So if you want to know the pedigree bloodline, it started with TACFIT with Scott Sonen. Then they came up with their own clubs. They're also a different design because I think the patent wouldn't allow them to create it similar to the TACFIT club. So
All right.
different sizes too. But to go back to your question, which
No,
was
I'm talking about your modus operandi on a daily basis of training. I've got this list that I'm making on my phone right now of all the things that I'm about to get into. So
yeah. So like, I'm pretty much trying to make sure that I'm always doing something for my shoulders that relates to throwing. So the club bells are a great tool for like getting a throwing pattern in, and recruiting that through the core. The other tool I've been using is that flow rope, right? I've been using a climbing rope to do these figure 8 patterns, which immediately show you asymmetrical movement patterns in your body, right? So you're taking a rope and you're spinning it on one side and you're spinning it on the other side.
yeah.
People can do them relatively quickly with their dominant side.
Yeah.
But as soon as I tell them to like flip the pattern to their non-dominant side, they can't facilitate the movement anymore. So it's a great way to immediately create balance between your two hands and your 2 feet. Because as you're using this rope, you're using your shoulders, which connect to the hips, which then connect to the feet.
Yeah.
And so by using this movement, you're able to like reestablish immediately deep symmetry between your body. And so I use that. I use kettlebells as well. But I'm using them more like to do running patterns kind of things. Like I'm always setting myself up in like maybe a split squat stance, or like I'll do a lunging pattern where I'm stepping into some movement. So I'm always like facilitating something that would carry over into a run, into a step, and then doing a rotation off of that. And then I'm just doing a lot of body weight stuff. I did get back into the Olympic rings. And then the farmer's walk has been so badass because for jiu-jitsu, you need to have grip strength, right? You need to be able to grip. So here I am. I call it the grocery bag challenge. I'm over here doing a grocery bag challenge for 30 minutes. Like, how many grocery bags can you fit in your hands and go to the house with out of the car? Well, I'm doing 20 pounds, so I don't know how many.
It's got to be all of them, right?
I'm doing 2 cars worth of groceries.
Oh my God. That's awesome. Now, I've seen some of your videos where it looks like you have kind of a nice outdoor, like a backyard or someplace that you train. Do you do a lot of stuff outdoors, or how does this work?
It's just so beautiful here in Miami, Florida. You know, the tropics here, you get really nice hot weather. So I love the sun. I love getting vitamin D from the sun.
Absolutely.
That's great for your hormones, immune system. So anytime I get that option, I opt for it. Right now, I'm actually at Flow State Studios, which has an indoor basketball court and gym behind us. So that's been a really sweet space to work from. So it's not really any like, of course, outdoors is nice, right? You get fresh air, you get sunlight. But sometimes it's so hot out here that you actually like to be indoors in the AC. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, how far away is Orlando from Miami? Because
it's about 4 hours.
Okay.
4 hours.
Damn.
But you could potentially fly into, I mean, there's an airport in Orlando, so you could fly to Orlando, but you could fly to Miami and then drive to Orlando. So that, it's definitely a possibility. I mean, we should definitely link up.
That's the thing. So what we're going to do, we're going to put together some kind of just like a huge workshop of just awesomeness. And then, so we're going to do some Wim Hof method. And then I'm going to say, Ben, punish me. Put me through all of I mean, because the thing is, I'm always looking for something, I'm always looking for something new. But I'm a human being who loves what I love, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we all have. We find these ruts, and it's like, well, I'm good at lifting weights, I know the routine, and I go here and then I lift this weight and then I go over here and I feel great afterwards. And okay, so I mean, I did yoga for a long time. I haven't done yoga in a while. I do a lot of mobility now, but so I'm definitely interested in a lot of that stuff. So
Yeah, because check this out too with the
yeah,
stretching, right?
yeah,
Like there's an idea, oh, this is going to be a great demo for everyone. So my issue and a few other people's issues with stretching
yeah,
is that connective tissue has properties that are like plastic. And there's something in engineering called plastic deformation, okay? And
okay,
plastic deformation is when you take a piece of plastic
right,
and you stretch it too much. And what happens is when you stretch it, it doesn't go back to the original length of this piece of plastic.
yeah,
And if you can see, like you got these nice like riblets in there, like the color
yeah,
even changed right there. So that becomes permanent. And that's the term plastic deformation, is now this has been deformed and won't go back to its original physiology. So
yeah.
supposedly we have this capacity in our connective tissue that if you stretch it too much, it doesn't go back.
And it's not as
So
strong. Like this is one of the biggest arguments against static stretches. Like is that exactly what you're talking about? And then you've actually weakened the tissue to some degree, isn't that right?
right, I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just look at
I mean,
this
just
back,
like what you
right?
did
Like,
there. I mean,
I just stretch it.
it's thinner. It's
there's
not
no
as
way this is
yeah.
stronger as where it was before. There's
Right.
no way. It's thinner. It wants to rip. Like,
And you might have a bigger range. You might be able to touch your toes better or have a better range of motion or whatever.
right.
But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily making you stronger, more mobile, etc.
Right. And so, like, for me, whose focus is jujitsu right now,
Yeah.
as being the best jujitsu artist I can be, like, being too flaccid, like, Nadia Aguilar likes to use that term, is flaccid body, where, like, you're just too lax that, like, when it becomes time to be elastic and
Yeah.
have stored potential energy, you're not able to do that because the tissue is too flaccid, it's too stretched. So he's not fond of that. And I've kind of figured that out with myself, too, is that, like, I'm just training things that make my body feel springier. You know, I want to be more elastic, more explosive, so that when I'm in training with people, when it's time to have to like sweep them or bump them off me, like I have that rigidity and elasticity to like generate some force versus, doing too much static stretching and not having that. So, I'm not a big proponent of doing those static stretches and the
Yeah.
practices that embody that.
Yeah.
Of course, there's practitioners in those programs that like know these
Sure.
principles and kind of like get you to activate and really like be training during stretching. And that's kind of how I use when I do a yoga class. I kind of like change it in my head a little bit, where like I will be neuro driving through the positions, so it's less static passive stretching and more active stretching, where I'm like pushing into the and creating activation.
And there's always exceptions to the rule. There's always going to be that one guy who, it's like, the guy in high school who could smoke weed all the time and then always ace the test. You could have probably done that. I was just smoking weed. And then I was like, oh yeah, we had a test. Oh, the test. That's right. But
Oh, I forgot.
you know, I'm going to respect your time. We've been going for about an hour and a half, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface. And I want to invite you to come back on this, and we're definitely going to hook up again. We haven't even gotten a chance to talk philosophy yet. So, I mean, one of the thing is, I think what we have a lot in common whenever there's just so much interest in, there's physicality, there's experiential, and then there's the intellectual, and then how these things merge together. I think is just this beauty of life, and there's the term, warrior poet, someone who's in touch with their emotional side, someone who's, also in touch with that warrior side. And And so, you know, I wish you the best on my birthday. I mean, I'm just saying, you know, so one of my former students, so this is speaking of rigidity, one of my former students is Derek Lunsford, who is a professional bodybuilder. He's competing in the Olympia that night as well. So I've got a lot of people I'm cheering on my birthday. And so it's a crazy thing. Now you talk about a guy that is, you know, he's more rigid. You're definitely, you know, very flexible, totally different body types, totally different goals, but, you know, great guys nonetheless. I am excited to see where jiu-jitsu takes you, because it looks like, man, you've really found something there. So,
yeah, I want to get my black belt. So in my mind, I have another 5 to 6 years of true dedication to the art of trying to be the best that I can be, so that I can get my black belt. And then as a black belt, have my own school, because I'm blessed right now to have the affiliation and be a blue belt. And that's going to make me an even better black belt, because I'm practicing teaching, and my game's gotten so much better because you have to know the movements to teach the movements. So you learn a lot about how the mechanics and even people's body types, and some people, and we were just going to touch on a little bit, but it depends. Everything depends, you know, like when you get onto the higher level, everything, like there's no straight answer. It's always, and that's how you know someone's
it's frustrating,
like really,
right? I wish, I mean, I remember hearing this so often, is like, well, you know, it depends. And I'm like, well, just tell me the answer, right? And that's the crazy thing. And in everything, right? Eventually you get to, it kind of depends. Or, you know, you're just going to have to figure it out
when you
yourself.
know, and that's when you know the guy that you're asking for that opinion is on an understanding of a higher level.
Is legit.
Because when you ask them, you're like, well, what about this? And then they're like, well, it depends. And you're like, what do you mean it depends? And you're like, they go, well, depends on this situation. And if that's not the situation, then this is the situation. And then you're like, oh, wait, there's more situations. I didn't know that.
They're not just making up answers just to get you to shut up. You know, they're actually saying, okay, yeah, dude, you don't really understand what you're asking. I'm nice, you know, or, you know, that's the thing. And you know, when you found a real master that way. And so that is awesome. And, you know, how can people find you? You know, I'm going to go ahead and link all of your links below, and we're going to continue this. I just want
we
to respect
definitely
your
should
time.
come back. Yeah, and respect your time too, Jesse. I appreciate you so much having me on. I really appreciate being able to catch up with you and share this stuff for sure. It's really cool, and it's really cool to watch you blow up. It's you know, you're definitely a motivation for me for where I need to be going with my career and pushing myself as an online instructor and mentor. So that's been really cool to see you grow. And people can find me on my Instagram. Really, that's my biggest platform.
I've seen some pretty awesome videos from not just a lot of different kinds of training, but also you're doing some instructional jiu-jitsu videos. Is that on YouTube, or is that just on Instagram right now?
I need to start my YouTube channel.
Man. Get your YouTube together, and I'll link it on my channel, and we'll get it started.
Cool, because that's what I need to do is be cross sharing my videos through all platforms, obviously, and get them on YouTube. But I'm on Instagram. It's Ben Pelton Plan. That's BenPeltonPlan plan. And you can find me there. You can DM me, send me messages, follow me, whatever you want. And I guess I'm on Facebook, but I don't really use Facebook. So find me through Instagram.
It goes over to Facebook, and
yeah, exactly. And then eventually I'll get my YouTube channel together.
Yeah, right. You will
get it going.
Awesome. Well, hey, brother, I appreciate you being here. Guys, check out Ben Pelton. If you haven't joined the Patreon club, what are you doing? Take a look at my link below to join the Breathwork Club. Guys, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to go out there and be kind to one another.